Pendleton Ward's Adventure Time had somewhat of an unconventional upbringing on Cartoon Network, especially for its time. It started rather episodic and wacky, not unlike Chowder or the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, but just a few seasons into its ultimately 10-season run, and AT really starts to show its true colors. Hundreds of interconnected plot threads are woven together over the course of the decade, and before long, Adventure Time more closely resembles the highly polished, story-driven animation series we would one day revel in with the likes of Gravity Falls and Over the Garden Wall. When you find out many of these projects had overlaps in creators and staff, the influences become clear as day. But like I said, the show itself was strangely caught between these two dynamics, and there was a serious fear of caring too much about the overarching plot, or wasting too much screen time on trivial filler. A show that many would say is going through this same battle right now is Adult Swim's Rick and Morty. But unlike that series, I think Adventure Time mostly succeeds in creating a balance amidst this bizarre and dichotomous writing style. But I said mostly. Truth be told, it can lead to feeling like some episodes were completely wasted on unimportant topics when it should have been spent on something, of course, subjectively better. The number one reason why this show has become such an iconic mainstay on my list of influential media is because of its unique usage of lore. They really take the more is more approach to world building. They throw caution to the wind and say, hey, should our show have ghosts in it? Well, how about vampires, demons, skeletons, robots, magic, the Nightosphere, ancient comets, and monsters that predate the fabric of the universe? When you decide that there are no holds barred and you're going to make your show as bombastically zany as Finn the Humanly possible, it's no wonder one or two really interesting topics can get left behind. As the Adventure Time creators bounded towards newer and newer episodes and fresher and weirder ideas, a few things just got left in the dust, thrown on the back burner, put on the top shelf, and completely forgotten about. This is why we're here today. Basically me nitpicking the show. What do I think could have been told better? What and who and where do I think deserved more screen time? I'm warning you now, this video is going to get pretty manic. It's difficult to string together dozens of disjointed plots, people, places, and items. But without further ado, this is Adventure Time's wasted potential. That title's pretty clickbaity, huh? Well, to remain perfectly honest with you, as much as I love Adventure Time, something it has in common with everything else on Earth is that it isn't perfect. I understand they had limited episodes and had no idea the scope of the story they wanted to tell back when the show was just about a stupid little boy and his funny yellow dog. But on return to the series, it's clear that even in its later seasons, it spends a lot of time on stuff it really just does not need to. There were way too many Graybles episodes, and I honestly think some should have just never even made it past the storyboarding phase, like Up a Tree or half the episodes starring tree trunks. Now, I got nothing against TT, but the more I think about this series as a whole, the more I realize just how much more it had to tell. And yeah, ending a series before it burns out is always better than slowly flanderizing it over the course of 3 decades. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, everybody knows for a fact that Gravity Falls needed more episodes. So there's clearly a sliding scale here of how much is okay, and it varies from series to series. And while yes, Adventure Time had its time and its place to tell many, many stories, I think that some went untold, rather unjustly, and it's time I speak my mind about it. Around 2015-ish, I would say, Adventure Time started playing speedrun catch-up, trying to tie up loose ends and explore the most important plots before wrapping up the show forever. Obviously back then, the future spin-off series were entirely hypothetical, if they existed in any capacity at all, so Adventure Time wanted to tell as many amazing stories as they could in their remaining allotted time. We got a lot of good episodes out of this push, like Montebell Bubblegum, a rich and touching origin for one of the characters we've grown so close to over the years. The beautiful and surprisingly realistic drama this show manages to pull off despite being so inherently goofy amazes me still in 2023. But not every character makes it out of this story fulfilled and well-rounded with a satisfying arc. Although, plenty of the best plot lines in Adventure Time history are about people entirely separate from the main body of the show. One of my favorites being Lemongrab's terrible reign over his people and their liberation from Lemonhope, or Magic Man's desperate pleas to the universe to bring his love back to life, and its echoes fell throughout Betty's story. Or Marceline's Odyssean life were shown in the Stakes miniseries. It's clear this show really pays attention to its characters, their dynamics, and their relationships. Even minor characters can get entire arcs to themselves. People like Magic Man, Root Beer Guy, Zergiak, James, even a horse on a beach ball all get multiple episodes of this show entirely dedicated to their stories. Seriously, on rewatch of this show, you will be absolutely gobsmacked at who you see make a return. Abracadaniel, the Fear Feaster, Sir Slicer, Clockbear. Remember that red giant we see in the Enchiridion episode that gets his big dollar stolen by Finn? Yeah, nearly 6 seasons later we see him terrorizing the Candy People. Another really funny example of this is Beemo Lost, an unassuming episode about Beemo's silly little ass getting lost in the woods with a sentient bubble and a baby he calls Ricky. It's a pretty cute and fun episode. I really like the part where they return Ricky to his mom and they find out his real name is Sparkle and Bubble says,
"Thanks to us, he's gonna grow up and be anything he wants to be. A strapping horse whisperer, or a sexy hitman, or whatever.
Yeah, good times. So? Okay, maybe I got a little sidetracked, but 3 whole seasons later, in the episode Reboot, one of the most fast-paced and serious of the whole season, this happens.
Sparkle says what?
Not only is Sparkle all grown up, he's also a rugged horse whisperer, just like Bubble said. Of course I know that this is just a silly little throwaway joke, but what I'm trying to illustrate is Adventure Time's serious, unironic dedication to its continuity regarding those who inhabit the lands of Ooh. I'm really just trying to convey that that's why when so many amazing characters go totally underutilized, it saddens and upsets me a little. And yes, I get a little sad about the missed potential of cartoons. Crucify and tar and feather me, okay? I am a cartoon. You guys just wouldn't know what it's like. But anyways, because of the show's character-driven nature, I think our discussion today has no better starting point than there. Let's discuss who in Adventure Time was robbed of the screen time that they rightfully deserved. Starting with a pairing that I think almost nobody would expect, Lady Rainicorn and Ricardio the Heart Guy. Before I explain why I put these two together, let's take a closer look at the former. For all you regular show enjoyers out there, Lady Rainicorn is sort of the high-five ghost of the group. And what I mean by that is that she's always sort of there, but never really the focus. She's there when the plot needs her to be, and is seemingly nowhere to be found when that isn't true. It leads to her feeling a lot more like a plot device sometimes than a fleshed out part of the world. Something to keep Jake away from the current conflict or create tension between 2 other characters. I would say she's the biggest character, or at least the most relevant character, that really never gets their time in the spotlight. Now I would be lying if I didn't say Lady had her moments. She can be a total badass, but that's my point, I want to see more. A potential thought you might be having right now is, Lady Rainicorn only speaks Korean, so it can be hard to work her into the dialogue of some episodes. And to that, I refer you to the 69th episode, Thank You. There's almost no words spoken between the 2 leads of this episode, but everyone knows this is 11 minutes of the most touching cinema Cartoon Network has to offer. Or what about Shh, an episode all about Finn and Jake playing the silent game? Adventure Time is not afraid of non-conventional dialogue spanning entire episodes, so why did Lady get snubbed? As a kid, I was always kind of sad for her. Whenever I thought about her, I would just think about how Jake is out playing with his little brother and virtually never spending any time with her. Then at one point it was revealed that Jake goes to Lady's house every single day at 5 o'clock, which is, I guess, when Finn fights Science Cat and Sword Shark in the front yard every day. Ironically, these 2 stupid-ass characters might get more TLC from the Adventure Time crew than even Lady does.
Oh, hey, Science Cat. Where's Sword Shark? He died of old age.
Oh. Ignoring that perfect example of them bringing back the most obscure characters, the saddest thing about this sidelining of Lady's character is her relationship with Princess Bubblegum. In just the first few seconds of the intro, they're seen enjoying their time together, PB catching a ride on her friend's back. This was sort of their early dynamic. She was just kind of PB's car. Eventually, they show us Princess Bubblegum's giant pet bird, the Morrow, who was introduced solely to make this one joke.
No, she said she's coming back on the morrow.
That means tomorrow.
No, man, the morrow is her bird.
After this moment, she pretty much just rides this thing around, which, is good, because Lady has, kids to deal with or something, probably. But it totally cuts a reason for Lady to be in a lot of scenes. When we see into the Fiona and Cake verse, and don't worry, we'll get to that in due time, we see their gender-bent counterparts even spend time together. What this tells me is that just like Finn and Jake, these 2 are in some way cosmically intertwined. Like their souls would find each other in every life of every universe. Even their little toy avatars and all the little people are hopelessly glued together.
Check out Lady and Princess Bubblegum.
But despite all of this context of them being so apparently sisterly, this is almost never shown. The obvious exception to this rule is Lady and Peebles. This episode is exactly what I want. Lady in the spotlight, working together and bantering with her partner in crime for the first time. This episode is stellar. But it almost hurts more that we have this episode to me because it makes me love Lady, but after this episode she kinda goes back to being like a G-lister. Something you'll learn about me throughout this video is that I'm a total sucker for villains, and the Dementor of Lady and Peebles is none other than Ricardio, back with a vengeance. One of my favorite tropes in media is when a ton of characters have branching rivalries, specific matchups that really bring the heat. The reason I paired Ricardio with Lady as a package deal to begin with is because I sort of see them both as narrative accessories to PB. So you could call both of them not being shown enough love a result of Princess Bubblegum's missed potential conflicts. Ricardio, to me, is easily the most interesting of Princess Bubblegum's direct foils. Better than Gumball, better than Maja, that's my hot take. His intelligence matches hers, and his obsession with creating himself a human body echoes PB's experiments with the creation of life.
See, I know a thing or two about building a body out of biomass, and you don't! Leave your heart exposed!
Their whole amazingly choreographed, written, and lit scene of them arguing over this is just such a big lead-in for him coming back. She beats him to a pulp, ripping him apart and telling him scientifically everything he did wrong in the process of creating his human body. I see this as a perfect setup for the return of Ricardio. Picture it now, a new suitor shows up, a giant fleshy man with that buttery George Takei voice. Ricardio, back in human camouflage. This could have had the potential to be a jaw-dropping episode. Finn would have personal stakes in this because the fake Ricardio would be the first human he's ever met. He'd be curious as all hell and trying to be friends with him, and Ricardio would most likely shut him down, ostracize him, and degrade him. Who knows how long it would take for PB to realize this man isn't who he seems. And another really interesting thing to explore in this hypothetical episode is the relationship between Ricardio and the Ice King, or maybe more importantly, the relationship between Ricardio and Simon Petrikov. He's the Ice King's heart, so is he, in actuality, Simon's heart corrupted by something? I want to believe they're separate entities because he refers to Ice King as Simon, but the fact that I don't know is why it's missed potential. They even replaced Ice King's heart with two maracas stuck together with toffee and a wad of nerves. Ricardio roams free in the land of Ooh. But he never makes that triumphant and terrifying return. He's just a silly little heart guy that joins Gumbald's useless rogues gallery in the final episode. This group of characters, known as the Legion of Candy Kingdom Haters, totally sucks. And man, do I wish that weren't true, because if anything has insanely high missed potential in this show, it's a group of some of the most heinous villains that have ever survived their encounters with Finn, Jake, Marceline, and Princess Bubblegum. The group we end up getting in the final episode is Gumbald, who is a massively underdeveloped character himself, Crunchy, not even his human counterpart Cheeklay, just a straight up cookie boy, Aunt Lolly, Ricardio, Bandit Princess, Samantha, Peacemaster, Meow, Pete Sassafras, Ash, Sir Slicer, Scorcher, the Green Knight, and Ice King. And Gunther, I guess, but he's not evil anymore. I think the Adventure Time writers knew that a huge Sinister Six style villain team-up was something a lot of people wanted. But instead of giving it to us, they decided to be the biggest trolls in the world by setting it up to be this massively important thing, only for them all to turn and run away with their tails behind their legs in the finale. You know what? Fine. I actually don't hate that misdirect. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about this whack-ass lineup here. First of all, this group makes Adventure Time's story feel a whole lot smaller and less grand than it actually is. Princess Bubblegum is a 1,000-year-old creature who is seen as a deity by thousands and a tyrannical dictator by many more, and you're telling me she's only made 15 enemies in that time?
Remember me, Jake?
No.
Ice King and Gunther are obviously useless, and yes, don't worry, we'll get to that wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man when we get to him. Quick sidebar, but Ice King isn't free from my missed potential vision. I guess you could just call that being a cynical bitch. But anyways, it always bugged me in the episode The Chamber of Frozen Secrets that he's revealed to be a Frijitsu master, a practitioner of the art of frozen ninja magic. We see a huge dojo in his ice palace that we've never seen before. Throughout the ice and tunnels of his temple of a home, the Ice King has giant frozen beasts, like these security frogs, this bull with mammalian organs, or the illustrious Icepede. None of these incredibly cool creatures ever come back again. Almost all of Ice King's wasted potential stems from him being too dumb to even know what's going on most of the time, but he can summon an army of snowmen, do some of the most advanced samurai magic in the verse, and in the episode What is Life, he uses his magic lightning to literally make a microwave permanently sentient. Ice King himself is a rabbit hole of loose ends and bizarre strength, but I do think there should have been at least one moment where Ice King actually had to fight. Like a serious fight, trying his hardest, using lightning and freezing and a militia of frozen insanity. This could have been used as a bright spot in the worst arc of the entire show. If you remember, I'm talking about when Ice King and Flame Princess's fight was spun on by Finn's horniness. I hate that that's a real thing I have to say. Flame King could have come after Ice King to defend his daughter, and we would have gotten to see why Ice King was strong enough to be invited to this legion. But enough about this crazy old man, back to the League of Evil Exes or whatever we were talking about. Samantha and Pete Sassafras don't really matter to me at all, but I guess I appreciate them being there. Ash and the Scorcher are perfect though. Them running away like cowards was totally in character for both of them, and while I would have liked to see more, it was in no way necessary. And I already said Ricardio should have come back as a giant, krang, fleshy meat man.
I think I'm gonna stop eating meat, man.
But a few characters in this lineup specifically do stand out to me. The first of all is Gumbald himself, who I don't have much to say about because he literally just kind of bores me. But there's one thing I always thought was really annoying. Why is Gumbald not Crunchy? Let me explain why this is a huge missed potential connection. So for those slightly out of the loop, These three are highly advanced gum people that Bonnibel made to be her family, but when they challenged her power, she turned them into docile candy people, the first of their kind: Punchy, Crunchy, and Manfred. Manfred has a few speaking roles here and there, Punchy is entirely irrelevant, and Crunchy might be the contender for the most famous candy citizen there is, along with Starchy and Cinnamon Bun. So why the hell was Crunchy made the way less plot-relevant Cheeklay, and not Uncle Gumball? Crunchy literally becomes the temporary ruler of the Candy Kingdom not once but twice in both Pajama War and Dark Cloud. Thematically, it makes leagues more sense for this power-hungry little fiend to have been Gumball and not the complacent and somewhat laid-back Cheeklay.
Her will is fire! Princess Crunchy the Unforgiving!
The only possible explanation I can muster up is that maybe since Crunchy's voice actor is Tom Kenny, they didn't want the big bad of the finale to be voiced by him too, because then it would have sounded too much like Simon or the Ice King or even Orgalorg, so they made Crunchy Cheeklay, while Gumball got shafted into being a true Z-lister. But this makes little sense to me, because why would the voice remaining the same be so important? I mean, Fred Melamed, Gumball's VA, definitely wasn't always the voice of this stupid little punch bowl, so what gives? We may never know, unless it's already been answered on Twitter or behind the scenes or something, but cut me some slack, I'm not perfect. Back to what I was letting on about. There are definitely villains who could have been in this finale, who have real reasons to hate our cast, and would have been a real joy to see on screen one last time, but for some reason, they didn't get an invite. How about Dr. Gross? Or Zergiak? Or here's a biased favorite of mine, what about the businessmen? I don't know, I just think they're cute. But for real, Gumball could have found them and unfroze them off screen, hiring them to help take down the Candy Kingdom. It wouldn't even have really needed an explanation. Sorry that I'm talking so fast, this video is just getting a little long. Or how about the Flame King? Or I guess as he's referred to at the end of the series, the Chipmunk King? Even during his midlife crisis, I think he would have accepted an invite to war. Tiffany could have appeared in this group as well, but to be honest with you, I don't even really know what his stance on Finn and Jake even is anymore. Tiffany himself is a big missed opportunity. I mean, he does get one episode where him and Finn go to like the dentist or something, but to be honest, it felt a little bit too little too late. The episode plays like the second saga of Tiffany's story, but the first saga, if you'll call it that, is his introduction, which is literally just a few second gag of Finn and him wrestling and spitting on each other. I guess it's funny that this character, who was originally just a joke, came back so many times in the first place, but Tiffany's character could have definitely been given a lot more depth that it was lacking in the end, despite his repeated showings. Now, I briefly discussed earlier how PB has a lot of unexplored lore, and how it would have been phenomenal to get more interaction between her peers, and her nemesis. But I've been sidestepping her most important relationship in the entire show, her on-again, off-again love with Marceline the Vampire Queen. Adventure Time's chronology spans eons, but at the end of the day, we really only get to see a small glimpse into what lays outside of the narrow slice we've been given. I could go on and on about how amazing hypothetical episodes that take place in these dark ages could have been. For instance, what about an episode walking us through every single inhabitant of the treehouse throughout the years? Hell, that could have been a 5-part Graples episode. Even something as recent as Finn and Jake as children would have been a great thing to have gotten. We see none of their childhood dynamics. Don't you think that's a little strange? We actually see more of child Jake and Jermaine than we do of Jake and Finn. In a show like, let's say, The Amazing World of Gumball, with a similar brotherly pairing, they pretty frequently flash back to their time as younger children because it's just a great and simple narrative device to explore a character's inner workings. So why don't we get a drop of this? We get some of infant Finn, but never any of Finn making mistakes and Jake having to step in to be the older brother. Or Jake slip into ignorant childhood crime. We know that he used to be a bike thief and even a bank robber at one time. An episode of young Finn being what ultimately changes Jake for the better would have been beautiful. The reason I'm having this completely disjointed rant after bringing up Marcy and PB is because they are the perfect vehicle to tell these stories. Maybe not the Finn and Jake one specifically, but if it happened millennia ago, or even far in the future, they would be there. We got to see this period a bit when Shoko goes to visit PB during the Candy Kingdom's construction. Going back to when it was basically the Candy Village is such a great use of this location we've all seen hundreds of times. This is definitely one of my favorite episodes. My all-time favorite is Evergreen, an episode set far, far in the past, following one of the ancient elementals, who were also a missed potential gold mine. That episode may get its own entire video on this channel one day, so I won't go too much deeper into it, but I'll really phone home that I need more of Ancient Ooh, it's so cool. A really good excuse to go back to PB and Marcy's romance hundreds of years ago would be an episode surrounding Maja the Sky Witch, an Eldritch character herself, who has a shit ton of beef with both of these fools and has for longer than we even know. Wait a second. Alright, whoa. Looking at the word count of this video is starting to worry me because this is supposed to be a quick and simple in and out upload, so let's start rapid fire discussing some of the most wasted people in this silly little cartoon. By the way, if you'd like to see me post more frequently, it would really help to like the video, or subscribe to me on Patreon, or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. Any engagement, financial or not, gets me closer to being able to quit my job and spend all my time working on these videos. Shout out to Gambit935 for being my first and only patron at the moment, but don't worry if you're broke like me. There's still free exclusive access to some of my stuff over on my Discord server, which will be linked in the description. Enough shameless plugging though. Let's get back to shamelessly prattling off underused characters in a kid's show.
Trust in your guardian angel.
And first is Finn Mertens. Where do I even start with this guy? One of my favorite gags is Finn's auto-tuned singing voice. We learn in the Jiggler that Finn swallowed a tiny computer as a child and can now digitally control his pitch at will. Similar to Finn's use of words like algebraic and mathematical, this is really an artifact of the early seasons mostly. Not that they don't never allude to it, he even sings a song entirely in autotune. It's called I Was Wrong, it's one of his best. An attribute of Finn that was really never brought up again though is Finn's red-green colorblindness, which we learn of in Red Starved. To be fair, I don't really know how much this matters. Like, I don't know what mileage they would have gotten out of this if they chose to make it relevant again. But with a show like AT, you'd think they'd at least mention it again, to make it seem like it came a little bit less out of nowhere. Another one-time reference I wish was expanded on is Finn's astral beast. I'm not going to explain why, but Finn and Jake find themselves paralyzed on their couch one day. And while Jake is trying to logically think of a way out of this situation, Finn guarantees he can free them by calling out to his astral beast that resides in the astral plane. Now, believe it or not, this place Finn believes in is actually real, and we would end up seeing it expanded upon in the aptly titled Astral Plane. But it turns out Finn's sister soul, his astral beast, is really just a swarm of butterflies, much to Finn's chagrin. I want a whole episode exploring what other people's innate astral projections are. Like, Jake is a dog. Does he even have an astral projection? Would his astral beast just be a dog? They could have made a fun little romp, like that episode of SpongeBob where he travels into everyone's dreams. Now, my last gripe with the way Finn was portrayed, my major one really, is his anger issues.
I'll kill you, Lumpy Space!
Now you have truly reached the end.
No! I choose my way!
My way.
Do you want to die, Tree Trunks? Is that what you think adventurers do? Die and make all the friends feel terrible because they couldn't save you?
They really dropped this main character flaw of Finn's just a few seasons in, sort of implying that he's organically conquered his anger off screen throughout the course of the show. Now that's all fine and dandy, but Adventure Time absolutely loves testing Finn and pushing him to his breaking point. They do it all the time. There are too many episodes which test his morals to even discuss, and we frequently get entire episodes about how Finn overcomes a specific aspect of his character that has been holding him down. In Blood Under the Skin, Finn confronts his problems with embarrassment head-on, and everything in the episode from Sir Slicer to Drop Ball to the chick armor is another test of Finn's tolerance for embarrassment. He tackles his repetitive and cyclical life in Hollow Egress, tests his problem-solving heroism and memories of Boom Boom Mountain, experiences an ego death in the Mountain of Matthews, and confronts his fear of the ocean a handful of times. But one of Finn's most prominent and impactful faults, his struggle with unbridled rage, ends up being a vapid and moot point once they, got bored of writing Finn to be so angry. But there really should have been an episode where he definitively overcomes this issue that has plagued him. The episode The Tower sort of brings out Finn's depressive and obsessive problems with losing his arm and his father, and briefly touches on his anger created by it, but I think Finn's anger should have been a more prominent focal point. Just one scene of Finn trying to accomplish a two-handed task with just one arm and devolving into anger which turns into the depression and resentment we see in the episode would have been a great start. Finn's psyche is the most intriguing thing in this whole series to me, and it does bother me that some facets of his character will go forever unexplored. But moving on, the second character of our rapid-fire discussion is Huntress Wizard. Her romance with Finn is brief, but it's easily my favorite we get. The two ultimately decide though, as Huntress Wizard puts it, exceptional beasts like us can never fall in love. Huntress Wizard is my favorite example of a background character turned semi-prominent figure. I just really wish we would have seen her truly rise to prominence. She likes Finn just as much as he does her, but she's so strong-willed, stubborn, and closed off that nothing could ever materialize between them. But her and Finn's dynamic is a good one, Finn being the soft hero with a heart of gold, and HW being the cold and confident killer we know her as. Their back and forth and romantic tension on missions would have been great to watch, and could have ended up with HW becoming more emotionally vulnerable, or with another Finn breakup story. But I actually wouldn't mind that. Firstly, because the last breakup was the worst part of the entire show, so they'd get to redeem themselves, but also they'd get to show Finn's emotional growth since then, handling the situation much better. The potential weight their short situationship could have had in the story is vast, and it never really hits as hard as I think they intended it to, at least for me that is. Another wasted character who is intrinsically tied to Finn the human is Billy the hero. I won't dive too deep into Billy, but he's clearly a surrogate character for Finn. Finn frequently worries about his future, and Billy is sort of a window into that future that he could be. The dynamic of a childhood hero turned warning of how not to turn out is not unique really, but it's rare that it's done in this way. And my point obviously is that Billy could have been treated to a bit more of that dynamic's exploration before getting off-screened by the Lich and having his skin stolen as a disguise. Billy's death at the hands of the Lich is potentially the darkest thing in Adventure Time, and should have had a massive impact on Finn's well-being. But I guess this episode was a little pressed for time because we don't even get a single line mourning Billy. Finn doesn't even scream out his name or anything when he finds out that the person he's been helping this whole time was actually the corpse of his childhood hero. When the heat dies down and there's finally breathing room to talk about what happened, they still don't. They just forget about it, and so does Finn. That sounds like a joke, but Finn literally has to just remember randomly a couple episodes later that the guy he loved so much died for him to be brought back into the plot. Only then do we get Finn mourning Billy in any sort of meaningful way. But this episode creates more missed potential than it quells with the introduction of Canyon, another incredibly cool character that goes largely underdeveloped. Speaking of underdeveloped couples, there's one pair of lovers we've literally never seen interact before, and that's Hunson Abadir and Marceline's mother Elise. Elise is a beautiful, soft-spoken woman whose life was cut short from a mysterious disease. She loved her daughter and had no intention of abandoning her originally, or leaving her to roam the wastes with Simon Petrikov. Simon eventually abandons her due to an illness as well, and sends someone else to come take care of her, this person being her horrendous biological father, Hunson Abadir. This begs so many questions that it's gotta be in my top 3 of missed potentials for sure. How did Simon even know Hunson? Why would Elise even associate with the Demon King of the Nightosphere at all, let alone conceive a kid with the guy? Was she not as good of a person as we think? Or was it Hunson that changed? How did the two meet? What drove them apart? It drives me up the wall thinking about this stuff. I wish I had more to say, but we really don't know anything. We don't even know what killed Elise. Another cryptic pairing worth discussing is Betty and Magic Man. Now to be clear, I don't mean romantically or anything, but you can't act like these two's time together wasn't massively entertaining. I love the magic users in Adventure Time, and specifically the fact that to be a magic user you need to have both madness and sadness, which, honestly, are my 2 favorite character traits. I'm just a big fan of this batshit crazy carpet-riding badass sorcerer, and this may surprise you, but Magic Man is my favorite character. His lore and his life were explored really well and done a lot of justice, I will admit, having perhaps the most dramatic character arc and subsequent growth than anyone else in the whole series, but I selfishly want more. I was originally going to throw out the idea that the two of them could have gone to ask Prismo for their respective loves back, but I'm pretty sure we actually get to see Magic Man have that wish for his wife Margles denied for Prismo at some point. Alright, Adventure Time, you get 1 point for that one. But while we're talking about Prismo, does anybody remember this line?
Now, if that happens, my boss, let me repeat that, my boss will hold me responsible.
Now, I would normally rather speculate about characters we know quite a bit about, rather than a hypothetical character we've only heard mentioned a single time, but this is an exception. Prismo's boss? Who could that even be? Was it one of the monsters from before the universe we've heard hearsay about from the Lich? One of the only monsters we know of from back then is Orgulorg, who I said we'd get back to, but now that this video has ballooned in length, I really don't feel like giving a full retrospective on why this arc sucks right now. Orgulorg was rushed into the story, died like instantly, and added nothing to this super cool concept of the Comets. I feel like such a hater right now. I really like Adventure Time, I swear. Oh hey, a moth! Another single line of dialogue alluding to wildly powerful forces beyond our comprehension would be this.
The last scholar of Golb. I am your doom.
The Scholars of Golb are another black box. Their first mention is just that they don't exist anymore. Probably because the Lich went Lich mode and liched all over them. The final characters, who I'm going to call missed potential even though we never met them, was the Destiny Gang. Looking at the farm world dimension, there's some sort of slightly off yet less weird version of all the people we've grown to love in OO. This begs the question, is the same true the other way around? Do the original characters we see in this episode have strange otherworldly counterparts that reside in OO? My first thought was that the Destiny Gang could actually be the Pup Gang, which I think is a cute theory but doesn't come off as very intentional to me. If that were the case, the groups would probably at least have the same amount of people, so boom, missed potential connection. But Farm World isn't the only dimension that I wish we would have gotten a deeper dive into, though. There are all kinds of other worlds that go vastly unbothered by our presence in the world. The most popular and divisive being Fiona and Cake's universe. Now, I really won't lie, I dread watching these episodes on every rewatch, and more often than not, I just skip them altogether. And no, I don't hate women, jackass. I actually don't even think the concept is inherently bad. I just think they did absolutely nothing with the premise. And it makes these episodes just kind of feel like bait because there isn't much substance to them at all. It's not even like it matters what they did because they instantly retcon the whole thing as being Ice King's fanfic, which first of all makes the entire episode feel so icky.
There is one guy I'd do anything to date. The Ice King.
No.
Ice King is the hottest hottie.
Stop!
Then Cartoon Network was like, hey, you could probably milk that some more. So then they unretconned it by having these scenes beamed into Ice King's head at night? What? I get it's for a joke, but like, really? I've got high hopes for the Fiona and Cake show that's coming out soon, despite my clear not love for the episodes. First of all, I think because it's its own series, it will be forced to do something interesting and new with these characters instead of just relying on its gimmick. Hell, maybe even if Fiona and Cake does good enough, I may even retroactively start appreciating the original episodes. Probably not, but I've got an open mind and love Distant Lands. By the way, I'm just glossing over talking about the 50 dead worlds, but boom, there you go, add 50 to the wasted potential counter. Not like they really all need to be explored though, and Finn and Jake have a wonderful and concise showing of them. Something not so concise though is the Crystal Dimension. We don't know much about this place, but Tree Trunks has been their leader, you can portal here, and it's the home of all the Rainicorns. Well, AT hates ladies, so there's a reason why this place never got any love. I was always so upset as a kid that crystals weren't one of the 4 elements, since their presence is felt through more of the series than fucking slime, are you kidding me? And hey, what about the 4th dimension? Like Finn's 4D sword that was cast into a black hole. Then there's the spirit realm of monsters that Ice King sees with his wizard eyes. So there's a realm of ghosts, a realm of demons. I think the spirit world is basically just like the realm of monsters and sort of half-real imaginary beings. When Finn and the Ice King become spirits, they can affect the static on the TV and even create a small current of wind. This tells me that some of the weirdest things that happen in this universe could be due to the invisible influence of these weird monsters. In the episode Who Will Win, when Finn and Jake get brought to near death by the farm, they wake up in this bizarre world with the Dream Warrior, a spirited car salesman who teaches them a lesson on how to beat their obstacle using riddles. Is he an inhabitant of this spirit realm? Are these cursed spirits? What the hell is this video even about anymore? Okay, the scale of this video has gone cosmic. Let's bring it down to earth. Most locations in the Land of Ooo are showcased for just as long as they needed to be. Even though the treacherous hills of Mount Cragdor were awesome, and they could have made a good episode about going back, it narratively works perfectly being its own self-contained little adventure. But some places undeniably feel like we didn't see enough of them, narratively. I mean, come on, when you think about it, we see the village of tiny people multiple times. The Goblin Kingdom, the Fire Kingdom, the Breakfast Kingdom, even Hamburger Hills Cemetery are all multiple-use locations and sets. And you could definitely argue that it would have been better to go back to a more deserving location. For instance, I'll say it again, Wizard City! But at least we revisit that here and there, and the episode Wizards Only Fools does a great job showing this place off. But there are so many one-stop paradises that never come back, sadly. In the episode Slow Love, there's this incredibly artful and unique pasture of mushroom fields. Later in that same episode, we get this foggy geometric meadow. In the early seasons of the show, they were much more likely to experiment, whereas if this was a later episode, it would have just happened in the regular old grassy hills of Ooo.jpg. There's the Desert of Doom and the Desert of Wonders, both filled to the brim with relics and monsters to fight. Forgotten about. There's also an evil, dark, wooded thicket that the show doesn't really give enough attention to either. It's right next to Tree Trunks' house, and some of the scary places that we see in some episodes may or may not happen here. I just wish the map of Ooo was a little bit more legit. If you look at the map of Ooo, you won't see a mountain or desert or lake in sight, despite them being all over. For a show with so much great world building, drawing a map of this place would be so impossible because it feels like literally everything is next to this damn treehouse. Something I'm surprised never got turned into an episode was just a little fixer-upper adventure. They destroy the whole treehouse so often that I always thought that they would have an episode where it's just inactive repair, or at least a throwaway joke of who actually fixes all this stuff, or just any reference to it at all, really. While we're so close to home, let's talk about something that really grinds my gears, the Enchiridion. Now conceptually, I think the Enchiridion is one of the coolest and most well thought out ideas in the series. Jake isn't always the best role model, and with no father figure, this book on how to be a hero is an incredibly useful plot device. Think of the journals from Gravity Falls and how interesting some of the interactions between Dipper and the book itself were. It leads to a lot of plot points, helps the characters defeat certain problems, creates intrigue and mystery. Yeah, Adventure Time does none of that. Finn gets the book in episode 5, and the amount of times the book is used narratively from that point up until its destruction in season 5 is a whopping once. In the episode Another Way, Finn uses the book the way it's supposed to be used. He has a problem he needs fixed, and finds a solution for it in the tomes of the Enchiridion. But it takes a group of creepy nurses harassing the kid to even get him to crack the damn thing open. And like I said, this is the only time he ever uses it. Other than this page on healing tears, pretty much the only other page we know of is a chapter on how to kiss princesses. But they absolutely wasted their potential with this mythic item, and Finn actually just nonchalantly gives the thing away. To a bear. Now originally I thought this was kinda cool. Maybe we get to see the bear's attempts to become a hero like Finn, and then ultimately finding his own style and voice. It would have given us a never before seen dynamic, that being someone for Finn to tutor and teach. But then not 30 seconds later, this bear double crosses him and gives the book to the Lich. And the biggest slap in the face is that none of that even mattered. The Lich disguised as Billy and tricks Finn anyways. He could have just asked for the book then. He tossed the thing to a bear and hardly thought anything of it. You think he wouldn't hand it to his biggest hero? This is not only a big swing and a miss on the potential front, but it devalues one character and kills another for a cheap feeling of shock. But now, it's time for the finale.
Right up here.
You made me steal, and you took my purity. You ruined me!
You broke me! What?
The City of Thieves, in my opinion, is the biggest waste of this show's potential in its entirety. It's a city of only criminals with a crown of buildings atop a colossal tortoise skeleton. Majority of our time spent here was in the inside of the Colosse's corpse, and the light seeping in through these hazy and magnificent hexagonal panels was just so creative, so awesome. It's so busy here that it completely overwhelms Finn and upends his entire feeling of heroism. He devolves into thievery himself, all because of one person. Penny is the perfect foil to Finn the human. His constant goodwill is the opposite of her never-ending kleptomania. She and her entire town drives Finn over the breaking point, and he succumbs to evil and dirty tactics just to seek pointless revenge on she who wronged him. It kinda sucks he just gives up. It would have been great to see Finn return to the City of Thieves as a teenager, a better hero, and see what he could have done to change the town that he previously had no way to help. What would bring him back to this place, though? Well, what about Bandit Princess? We know almost nothing about this royal robber, but unless there's a bandit kingdom, Bandit Princess may be the heir to the City of Thieves' throne. She could have stolen the Finn sword and gone back there to hide out, where she would have seen that in her absence, the slightly older Penny now rules as Princess Penny. I think Penny could have been a great recurring villain or even anti-hero, but I guess Marceline always filled that role, so they just forgot that she was ever even an option. This town and its inhabitants have always stuck in my mind since I first saw this episode on my living room floor the night it aired on Cartoon Network. It's the reason I made this video. The show obsessed with traumatizing and testing its MC and showcasing his growth would have no better time showing that transition than through a direct comparison like this. Tackling a problem that seemed impassable and unfixable just a few short years ago. This is the end of the video, but my thoughts on Adventure Time don't end here. Support this video if you'd like to see more like it, and comment if you have a totally new idea for me to try out. Reminder to check out my Discord or Patreon, or just follow me on Twitter to get vague channel updates and strange artwork. This is sort of unlike every other video on this channel right now, so I'm not sure what to plug here for you to go watch, but hopefully something else in the Jallomoth world will pique your interest. And if you happen to still be here wondering when I'm going to post another JJK video,
No comment!